There's a pattern many thoughtful people begin to notice over time. They find themselves almost always working on themselves. A habit to improve, a mindset to refine, a pattern to more clearly understand. At first, this doesn't seem unusual, and in many ways it feels responsible. Reflecting on your life, trying to grow, trying to become more capable and self-aware. But over time, something subtle can begin to shift. Working on yourself stops being something you occasionally do and starts becoming the way you relate to yourself. It becomes your default position, as if there's always something to adjust, something to improve, something to figure out. And because this process can happen gradually, it can often be difficult to notice when this shift occurs. It just begins to feel normal, as if this is what it simply means to be a thoughtful person. But if you look more closely, something interesting begins to appear. The sense that you're not quite finished, that there's always another version of yourself you should be moving towards, a version that will finally feel settled, more complete, more at ease. So attention stays directed toward what still needs adjustment, what still needs improvement, what still needs to be understood. And again, none of this requires reflection or growth to be a problem. The question is not whether improving yourself is good or bad. The question is far more subtle. What's driving the need to always be working on yourself? Because for many people, the process is not only about growth, it's connected to a much quieter assumption. The assumption that the current version of themselves is not quite enough, that there's still something that needs to be corrected. And when that assumption is present, the project of self-improvement takes on a different role. It becomes less about exploration and more about resolution. The resolution to become that final version of yourself that will finally feel settled. But because the underlying feeling of unease continues to appear time and time again, the project of self-improvement rarely comes to an end. It continues to evolve. There's always another layer to examine, another adjustment to make, another improvement to pursue. And over time, something subtle begins to shift. You stop being a someone that's seeking to grow and improve, and you become something that's constantly being worked on. And this doesn't happen in a fast way. It happens in a quiet, gradual way, often unnoticed by us. It's a shift in orientation, where we find ourselves consistently directing our attention towards refining, adjusting, and improving until it just feels like it's a normal orientation of life, as if this is the way a thoughtful, self-aware person should behave. And because this orientation becomes familiar, it can begin to feel necessary, which raises an interesting question. If you're always working on yourself, when does the work end? When in this process is the work finally complete? And often there's no clear answer to this question because this process is being driven by an assumption that the underlying unease has to be resolved. And if that assumption is incorrect, then this project of self-improvement will go on indefinitely at no end. Which raises another possibility worth considering. What if this project of improving ourselves is not defined primarily by the need to grow and self-improve, but is being shaped by how we have defined the problem itself? And if that's the case, there's a lot more for us to further explore together.